everybody. You're listening to and possibly watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie. And that was Steve Morey saying that he was Steve Morey, but he's muted, so you can hear that. So, Bill,
we've got podcasts. We've got muted Steve. What's going on? I kind of like podcasts. We're
podcasts.
Got to do like a Fosse move, Anyway.
I love you. Let's go.
We've already gone off the rails. Not even 30 seconds. And
Good night, everyone.
You weren't expecting a Cure imitation 2 minutes into the show, were
no.
Neither were we.
Although I did. I learned how to play It's Friday, I'm in Love on the bass. That was my project for last week, and I've now not mastered. I now can play that song on the bass. Not well, because I do nothing well. I just do things adequately.
Well, that's cool.
So we're back with you. We intended to be with you last Wednesday, right? That's where we eventually
I believe so.
But things happened.
Stuff.
I had been dealing with about a food poisoning that was pretty bad. Feeling better, but one thing I got to say has not come back is my appetite. Seriously, that's not the way you want to lose 9 to 11 pounds. It's not the way you want to do that. But I just haven't been that hungry since this all went down. I'll take it, if it's short term, if this gets things down a little more, I'll be good with that. I mean, food poisoning is the worst because it's just like you really can only wait it out, I mean, there's things you can take, but they're not that effective. So.
Well, we're no stranger to musical references, so I mean, if you can't get what you want, and which is not the way you want to lose it, it might just be the way you need to lose it, though. So
Yeah, everybody loves a norovirus for for weight loss supplement.
I mean, I'm on like a protein diet right now. I've literally had nothing but protein shakes for 4 days. And so, I'm dreaming of French fries, and neurovirus sounds easier than this.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned something about protein diet.
The real kicker was this went down at a catered meeting I went to for work. And it was not mandatory. I could have called it. That's the thing that really kills me. But it's like it's promotion year. You got to make these appearances. That shit. So
that's poopy.
Yeah, it literally was poopy.
It's like, well, you tried.
Oh, you knew that was coming. But I got a lot of sleep in. Sleep is good.
That is always good. That's definitely pleasant.
Yeah.
It's more pleasant than waking and feeling terrible.
Like Monday was my last extended sleep. So last night was kind of normal. So I think I'm through it.
That's good. That's good for sure.
Y'all did other stuff.
You did. Caleb, what'd you get up to last week?
Oh God, last week I had weird things happen at work. Went and did some training. I don't think I did much of a whole lot last week.
Yeah.
It was just kind of a whirlwind week. Yeah, like it just moved very fastly. Work things happened. I don't think I did much of anything. Yeah. This week I'll have a different answer to that next week when we get together, because I get to go. I'm going to pull a Bill Zanowitz this weekend and go to a music show. So very excited about that.
I can talk about the music show. That is my wolf of the week later.
Yeah.
So, we'll get to that. But luckily that hit before that. Woo, thank God. But yeah, so and then Steve did something. So yeah, Steve, tell us about the event that you went to that neither Caleb or I were invited to.
Oh, you were invited. Absolutely.
I was not invited.
Well, you were invited.
No, I wasn't.
It's like telepathically. I had sent you guys telepathic invitations. Clearly, you decided not to listen to those. So,
Are we counting telepathy?
Yeah, I don't
Of
think we count
course.
telepathy.
I
you
feel
know,
like that's
even if it's in cursive, I don't think we count.
Everybody's got gay telepathy. What is going? Anyway, so yeah, so I was invited up to a horror convention halfway to Halloween, the Screams by Night convention, which was hilariously awesome. We had some really great times there. It was put on by friend of the show, John Runyon, as well as the duo from Screams from the Basement podcast, Sam and Casey, Sam Lentz and Casey Calderman. And they did an amazing job. Some really great guests, wonderful vendors, just a lot of fun. Plus, I got to go to Sioux Falls for the first time. I had never been to South Dakota. And did you know there actually are falls at Sioux Falls? It's not just a clever name. They actually do have waterfalls. And it's a beautiful city. There's a lot of public art. There's a lot of really cool buildings. And of course, part of the convention, connected to convention, was the Friday night screening in the State Theater right downtown of, let's see if I get this right, Sorority Babes in the Slime Ball Bolorama, the original from 1988, starring Brink Stevens and Michelle Bauer, who were both in attendance as guests. And afterwards, they did do a Q&A, and they're wonderful. They are two wonderful women. Brink Stevens, for those who are comic book fans, might know her as one of the models for the Image of Vampirella. So she's done a lot of Vampirella stuff. But between the two of them, these women have been in 500 films.
Wow.
They are scream queens extraordinaire. And they're also, they're successful behind the camera, outside of the Hollywood system as well. But just getting to meet them in person was awesome. And getting perspective from, being one of those gorgeous scream queens from the 80s and 90s, what that's like, and, how their career has treated them. So it was fun. But yeah, got to meet some great people, got a ton of swag. So I'll show that at Geek Gets. So super grateful to John Runyon and to Casey and Sam. Thanks, guys, for inviting me up. And John and his husband, Ken Creamer, I stayed with them. So John and Ken, absolutely thank you again for all of your hospitality, because it was an absolute blast. And makes me want to go next year. So.
With Ken's interest in Stephen King, did he have a role at the con too?
He didn't. He was like me, just a super guest. But obviously, he had some great finds there, and I think most people kind of recognized him from his 60 Seconds of Stephen, trivia clips that he does on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram. And he had some really cool finds as well. You can get some really interesting things from the VHS vendors and some other people, but it was a hoot. And I actually got to guest on an episode of A Comic Book Look. So nice. I got to meet Tom and Sam, the other two guys there from Comic Book Look. And two of the guys from Comic Book Look, and we filmed an episode and had a fun time at Tom's place. So thanks again to Tom, and it was great meeting both of you and Sam. But yeah, it was just it was a blast, and also got to be on a Comics by Night podcast with John. Got to be on a 60 Seconds of Stephen clip with Ken. And then we also, while I was there, filmed an episode of Bear Cave of Terror, a very quick one, with the two of them on They Live, John Carpenter's They Live. So I'll be putting that out. Those of you who are able to see it live on Twitch, awesome, but it will be released this weekend in audio form, and I'll put up some clips and stuff. So
I have a very interesting history with They Live. And imagine you two have both been in this bucket as well, where I've seen the entire film, but I've never seen it in one sitting.
Really?
Yeah,
Have you ever had that? Yeah.
Huh. I've had that happen with a couple movies.
Yeah.
Not this one, but I think for a lot of people nowadays, especially who we've actually got a note here from John who's popped in. Ken will be on the crew for year 3 and they'll add others too. Well, that's awesome. So yeah, for the planning committee for Screams by Night, looks like Ken is also going to be on that. So awesome. Thanks, John. Who's, by the way, hi, who's joining us from Facebook. So yay, the Facebook stream is live. Finally, thank God. So, but yeah, I think with They Live, it's one of those movies that's made such an impact culturally that I think most people don't even realize that they're watching clips or seeing images or hearing, lines of dialogue from that movie and understanding where it's from.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm here to chew bubble gum and kick some ass, and I'm all out of bubble gum.
Yeah. And I also think it's one of those films like I think Empire Records is probably in this boat, and a few others, where it's sadly Idiocracy, where its importance has been a slow build.
Yeah.
Over time. Yeah.
I mean, They Live is, and we talk about it a lot. It literally is a movie about how important it is to be woke, literally. So, from the mid '80s, which was prescient back then, because obviously being in the middle of Reaganomics and the decade of greed before the Black Friday stock market crash, this was probably thought as being a little bit hysterical as a movie. It's like, it's not that bad. You guys are going a little bit above and beyond. It's science fiction, horror, whatever. But looking at it now, and in fact, in the movie, there's a line where the ghouls are talking to the human traders. Hey, we've got plans. We're on track for 2025 to be the ultimate year of our ascension. And you're like, what the yeah. So they were telling us then, and they were right. So yeah, pretty fantastic stuff. So but
it just, and I love that I love that it's a movie with a wrestler in it. Like,
well, and he does have a shirtless scene. So
and hey, I mean, Roddy Piper was not a bad looking man, but I mean, he also, like, no one thought of wrestling at that time of being, any kind of like top shelf, highbrow, intellectual thing, right? These were meatheads who punched and kicked, and if you bought into the kayfabe or not. But like the fact that he's in this movie that is so prescient, like, and so inherently political, and you look at the wrestlers from that era who, Jesse Ventura, like, it's like, okay, these people, whether you agree with them politically or not, these were very in shape men who did something and made a lot of money some money to do things, like wrestling. But also, these were not unintelligent human beings.
No,
not all of them. No, some of them were just dumb as box rocks. I mean, Hulk Hogan is Hulk Hogan, but like, not all of them were that way.
Right.
No, and they played roles. I mean, this is entertainment. So they professional wrestling is on that line between live theater and sports, so it's very athletic, it's extremely athletic, but it's also very scripted in a way. So you have, obviously you have the plan, you've got the, how things are supposed to go, but then you have the actual physical execution, which is insane and crazy. And, things can happen there too.
Yeah.
But the kayfabe is a big part of.
And I think with Roddy Piper's inclusion in it, I think that works for the film in that he's a recognizable face, but not necessarily as an actor. I think because of the conceit of some of the machinations in the film, that works better than somebody who, I think, if they were an established actor, it might not be as effective.
True. Yeah. We've got Vince Tenebra coming in from Facebook. I came to chew gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubble gum. Yep, Vince, that is his line. That's Roddy Piper's line. And you could see it coming straight from him. He just has that delivery where you're like, yeah, this is a tough dude.
Yeah.
But he could stand in for a lot of people.
I used to have a pretty amazing T-shirt. I bought it at the beginning of the first Great American Mistake when the shithead was elected, and it had him, but in the with the glasses off, with the glasses on, and it said "Obey" with an exclamation point. I missed that shirt. I literally wore it out. In Arkansas, of all places. I would love to have another version of that shirt.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, it's just, there's some great imagery there. And I think, again, for younger, I'd say younger listeners, younger viewers, who aren't too familiar with it, because it's early 80s movie. If that's not your bag for horror or sci-fi, you're probably not, it's probably not high on your list to watch. But if you're a fan of South Park, you've definitely seen the fight scene.
Yep.
That 9-minute knockout drag out fight scene between Piper and Keith David, but reenacted by I guess it's Timmy and Jimmy, I believe.
Timmy.
So, yeah. Timmy. It's Timmy and put on the glasses. Put them on. Yeah, that. Anyway, can
you only talk like that for the rest?
I did not know you could do that.
That's amazing.
Put them on. But anyway, no. Now I feel bad somehow. I don't know why. Anyway, but yeah, so it was a blast, and getting to do it with these two guys. And actually, just so you know, it was John's first time. He had never seen that movie. So talking about how it's not in everybody's wheelhouse. Even if they're a John Carpenter fan, they may not really have picked this up, because you've got The Thing, which is way up there in coolness, and then you've got the more recent ones, and of course Halloween. But they live sometimes skirts on the radar. So look for it. Look for it in the Bear Cave of Terror podcast feed, or on the YouTube channels.
And I also enjoyed seeing John in the Bear Cave of Terror t-shirt.
Yes.
You might enjoy seeing that. So,
it was awesome. I loved that I was able to get those to those guys. So they were rocking it. I was representing Bear Cave of Terror at the Halloween con, gave out a ton of stickers. Thanks again to John for getting those stickers printed. That was awesome. Getting that to the vendors. So met a lot of cool people.
All right, cool. All right. Well, unfortunately, if we were discussing news, we had a bit of a very tragic event this week for comics, and that is the passing of Gerry Conway from prostate cancer. And he's been writing comics. This was amazing. His first published comic from DC was in 1969. He was 16 years old when his first story was published. And, with some of the books that, where he started making a name for himself, he was still in his teens as a writer for some of this. And, had a very long career in comic books in the 90s. After writing for television animation, he was able to translate that into live action TV, first with the Father Downing Mysteries, and as a writer and producer for a number of series, and that eventually culminated as an executive producer for Shalona was that Criminal Intent. So, and has made some return to comics here and there, but it definitely is a loss, and we have a few books that have certainly connective tissue to Gerry, but a big loss, I think. For me, coming into comics when I came in, his Spider-Man is my Spider-Man. That's the voice I always hear with Peter. It's the voice that Gerry Conway, especially with the art from Ross Andrew. That's my conception of the character. And, he's kind of locked in that time of, being a college student for me. you know, which he kind of hasn't strayed that far age-wise, really. You know, maybe a few steps forward and a few steps back with some machinations, but yeah, and I know with the books that we're going to be talking about, Steve and I, you know, have books that are current DC books, you know, that there's a very direct through line to Gerry Conway, and Caleb actually has a fairly early book in Conway's canon that that he's going to be discussing, and the actual title of this episode comes from his sort of mailbag, which was Conway's Corner. In the various books that he would write and edit. So yeah, it's rough because, you know, I mean, I think, you know, you are used to, you're getting very used to the Bronze Age artists and writers leaving. You know, it's very sad. It's, you know, just the march of time.
I mean, but we don't have. Yeah, we don't have that many left. I mean, Roy Thomas,
Marv Wolfman, you know, and some of the people that, you know, Walt Simonson, you know, there's people that came in, Chaikin, that came in during that era. Luckily, some of those people were so young when they came in that, you know, and thankfully some of them are actually still working in the medium. You know, that there's, you know, we're lucky we've had them as this long. Let's put it that way, though.
Yeah.
You know, that they've, you know, continued to, you know, expand upon the body of work. But it's rough because, you know, these are, you know, these are the names that, you know, when I came in. I know you guys are, you know, you're younger, but there's going to be a time when it's like the Image guys are going to be going.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they're generational. You know, if you read Chaikin's Hey Kids comics, I think he kind of covers the, you know, the eras of, you know, each cohort of writers and creators that come in. You know, you had the Golden Age, you had the Silver Age, and then you had that transitional, you know, period in the 60s to 70s that gave birth to everything that was happening at Marvel and all the interesting stuff that was happening at DC. And there's just these groups of creators that sort of just all come in at once and change everything. And I think with Gerry Conway, I mean, again, we're kind of getting down with that group, you know, passing away. But yeah, I mean, when the Image guys start going, I think that's when we'll start feeling old. But
well, for my thing is, you know, so for me being my age, you know, these artists, these figures, you know, it's similar to when Stan Lee died, similar to when George Perez died. All of these figures have been, you know, around my entire life. Like they've been just kind of like, you know, they're just names that you see, and, you know, whether it's work from the 70s or modern work, they've always been around. So just the very notion that they aren't in the world anymore, it is very strange, because they are so, you know, iconoclastic in just the history of the comics medium. And, you know, I do take your point. I do think it will be different when the Image guys start, you know, hopefully a long time down the road, but when the Image guys start passing, not less impactful, just different. Because with the Gerry Conway generation, you get not only the prestige and, you know, kind of these characters and stuff like that, but you also get just a vast amount of history with the publishing industry, you know, with the different things that all of these figures did, with the, you know, these people being, you know, whether they were like these madmen-esque figures who worked in the office place, or just hippies, you know, folks that were writing under pen names, doing this really cool stuff that challenged racial notions, doing really insane stuff that challenged just everything that we see. With connections to the Wortham era, you know, connections with EC Comics, and then, you know, also the things that we haven't mentioned too much. We've mentioned a lot of men, but also the incredibly important, incredibly impactful, and really could not have had comics without them. Women, Wheezy Simonson is in there. It just there's a ton of them that they worked alongside with, and I think they advocated for, and I think that's really important. And so we have all of this history and these dynamic changes and just this weird subset of Americana. And I don't think that we see that in modern comics anymore because the business is different, right? Most writers and artists that we know are freelance, and they even the ones that aren't certainly don't go work in a writer's room for comics. They do for film and stuff, but they're not, there's not a bullpen anymore where all these artists are coming and sitting around and like drawing next to each other. I mean, there's studios, right? So Jeremy Hahn has a studio and he works with 2 or 3 people, and you have all of these different clusters, but it's not the same because they are just so, they're so sparsely spread out. And there's not these like figureheads where just like, this is happening in an office building in New York, and you can like walk down the street and some guy is going to be passing out, cut up pieces of Jack Kirby's pages or, Gene Colan's pages or just whatever. And so to me, it is the losing of not only just these figures, but also of a really big legacy and important just kind of historical sphere of how the comics medium came to be, such a just, huge thing.
And I also think there's an added poignancy with, the group that he was part of, like Roy Thomas and Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams. These were fans first. They grew up as fans, which you didn't have in the golden age because, they grew up medium effectively. They essentially created it, and this was the really the first group of creators that Shooter certainly was part of that. That grew up as comic fans and got into the business through their fandom mostly. Yeah.
Speaking of people who've recently passed, Jim Shooter. But we also lost Sam Keith last month too. But he's part of the younger group. He's part of the more, I'd say maybe the group that came in the 80s. That
there was another writer that passed away this week, Len Straczewski, and for me, that he's a very underrated writer. Most of his work was, between 1990 and 1995. I didn't enjoy it contemporaneously because that was basically the time I was out of comics, but certainly through collecting back issues, he had a fantastic Justice Society, very abbreviated 10-issue run. He was the writer for both the Web and the Fly from the Impact line. And I think if anybody was ever looking to learn how to write an all ages book that didn't dumb stuff down, those are really great templates.
I love those when those were coming out. I read those, and they were, I think, because it was Archie that was publishing them.
Well, it was DC. They licensed from Archie.
Impact. But they kept them cheap. They were $1, $1 comics when everything was going up to $1.25 or $1.50, and they felt like comics.
Yeah,
they had the news, the newsprint pages. They just had that action. They had that timeless quality that, like you said, it's an all ages book. It's a book that can appeal to anybody who likes superhero comics or, fun action books.
But it wasn't written down to kids.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. That's a dying art.
It is.
It really is. It shouldn't be, but it is. Yeah. Well, again, Gerry had his hand as a creator, co-creator of many characters. Probably the best known as the Punisher, but then you extend that to Jason Todd, you extend that to Power Girl, many other characters, Killer Croc, and one character that he wrote that was intended, and he was outright about this. An attempt to make a DC Comics Spider-Man was Firestorm.
Right.
And there is a new revival of Firestorm. And Steve, you read the first issue. Why don't you tell us about it?
I did. So this is actually part of the Next Level I guess initiative or sub initiative for DC. So they're putting out several new books. Lobo, Zatanna came out, I believe, today, and Batwoman. But this one, of course, is Fury of the Firestorm. Now, that title's been used multiple times before in previous iterations of the Firestorm title or the Firestorm books. But this is the newest version of this. So they're bringing back Firestorm in a different way, maybe reintroducing him to a new group of readers, because he comes and goes, in terms of popularity, in terms of use at DC. But this one, Fury of the Firestorm, is written by everybody's favorite Jeff Lemire, and the art. And I just want to make sure I'm getting this right. The art is by Rafael de la Torre, or De La Torre.
Wait. Jeff Lemire's writing it?
Yeah.
How did that go past me? I
don't know.
It's in my next box. That went woo. Okay, cool.
Oh yeah. Yep. And colors are by Marcelo Maiolo, letters by Lucas Gattoni. But this is it's such a great book. And let me see if I could go ahead and pull up some images here for those of you who are watching. So this is sort of the standard cover, the A cover, without the title and the DC Comics bullet. But this book is sort of I don't want to say it's a reinvention of the character, because they're not rebooting the character in any way. They're not creating new versions of the characters, but what they are is exploring. And of course, being Jeff Lemire, you're going to get some deep cuts here in the development of this character, who this character is, who this character has been throughout the years. And so let me look a little bit deeper into this. So I took this page. This page is really interesting. It kind of shows the history of Firestorm. So at its heart, Firestorm, as created or co-created by Gerry Conway and Al Milgrom back in 1978, was two different people. So you had Ronnie Raymond, who was a college student, kind of a goof off, but also really intelligent, but not too serious. Just a college guy, kind of like a sarcastic Peter Parker type, maybe. And then you had his professor, Professor Stein, and through a nuclear accident, of course, they become fused into a single being through what they call the Firestorm Matrix, where Ronnie pretty much controls the body, and Professor Stein is wonderfully depicted usually as a floating head that's just kind of speaking into his ear, trying to provide him guidance, to help control his powers and abilities. And Firestorm, of course, is extremely powerful. They tend to nerf him a little bit in some books, just because it could be ridiculously powerful. I mean, he could be on the level of a Dr. Manhattan, to be honest, because he can fundamentally change the atomic structure of anything. And usually they do use that in a way where it doesn't cause a lot of death and destruction. And in fact, because it's Ronnie Raymond, he's funny and goofy, and sometimes silly things can happen. But throughout the years, they've had plenty of changes. So you've had different characters combine to make the Firestorm. So it's not always Ronnie and Dr. Stein. Sometimes it's Jason, I think, was one of the characters. And Ronnie at one point were both sharing the body. There was a couple other people throughout the years. I'm sure,
there was a
Bill,
Russian.
there's a Russian guy. And of course that changed the way that Firestorm looked. New 52, you had a different version, all of that. But what's happening now? So in this book, Firestorm has just descended unspeaking onto this small town called Bedford in Colorado. And while he's there, he just starts experimenting. He wordlessly starts wandering around the city, changing the composition of things. Not talking to anybody, not really acknowledging that there are people there, but just playing with the fundamental elements of the buildings and the street and water and the air. And of course, people are scared, they're terrified. And the way Lemire writes this is he goes day by day and sort of sees like, okay, well, on this day he just sat around or stood around. On this day he meditated. On this day he started changing the buildings. And on this day the people get scared, and so he punishes them. And this is not what Ronnie Raymond would normally do, but he turned most of the people into glass or ash, and that's terrifying. So all of a sudden this became, this is a book that's not about a superhero. This is a book about essentially a horrible supervillain. There doesn't seem to be any reason or any rhyme why he's doing this. Now there's some emotional response to this on day 5. If you see what's on on the screen now, on the 5th day, realizing what he had done, the nuclear man wept after he had completely killed every single person in this town by transmogrifying them. But something's still not right, and he just starts playing and twisting and changing everything around him because he can. It's almost like he's snapped and he's become the worst supervillain that you can think of, just using his powers to destroy and warp. And of course, the US government figures this out pretty early on. They've been watching him through satellites, and they figure that they need to stop him before he does this to anyone else. He's already killed many people in this town, and doesn't seem to be stopping. So they reach out to his ex-girlfriend, who Lorraine Riley, I believe Firehawk was her superhero name. She's more or less retired here, and obviously she's the ex-girlfriend, so she hasn't been around with Ronnie for a long time. But they figured that she might be able to talk to him because they're the only ones that they can find. She's the only one they can find. They can't seem to find anyone else who's related to the firestorm. So they go to the small town, and things get worse. They do not go well for anybody. But then we have a quick interlude, and we have it inside Firestorm's head. And in this part of the book, the art changes immensely. It stops being that modern, the current modern DC house style, and goes back to a 1970s, early 80s house style. The colors change, which, again, love it that they did this. Just everything feels like reading a late 70s, early 80s comic. And Ronnie's being sarcastic, and Dr. Stein's being, don't you, make sure you're doing da 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 da. And they're, they're trying to save the city from some craziness happening. And they just do their normal things. But obviously something's not right here. And it turns out that we are in Firestorm's head. Ronnie and Dr. Stein are trapped. And there is another force that's keeping them in this loop where they just save the city and then realize that something's wrong and try to escape. And then right back to the beginning where they're trying to save the city and then realizing something's wrong. So it's fascinating. And I'm really curious where Lemire's going to take this. And again, with Lemire, if you've read Black Hammer, if you've read pretty much anything that he's ever written, when he gets into this point where he looks at the core personality, the core of these characters, these legacy characters in DC and Marvel, and tries to pull out what makes them tick, you get some really fantastic storytelling here. So, the secret, who's actually controlling the body? Who is this firestorm that we see out in the real world? Is it somebody else that Firestorm had as part of the Matrix at some point that's just residually, there? Or is it something new entirely? And that's what we're hoping to find out in this series. So we'll see where Lemire takes it. But I mean, this first book is a horror book. This first issue is a horror book. I mean, what Firestorm is doing to these people. And it does not look like he can be stopped at this point because the gloves are off. There's no training wheels on this superhero. There's no sarcastic teenager in charge. And that's scary. Makes Firestorm actually a scary character. So pretty cool. I'm definitely recommending it. If you are a fan of Firestorm, or if you know nothing about Firestorm, give it a shot, because I think there's enough information here where it kind of gives you some background on these characters so that you're not going in completely blind, but also leaves a lot open and a lot of gaps so that hopefully you'll be encouraged to check out the history. But I know Lemire's going to do a good job on this one, because I mean, I love everything he does.
Cool.
So I have a question, Steve. How much history with Firestorm do you have, like going back? I mean, is that a...
So I've read a lot of sporadic comics, some showcase, some stuff. Like I didn't pick up Firestorm comics when I was reading originally. In fact, when I was reading, there wasn't a Firestorm book, a regular Firestorm book on the wall back, in the early 90s. He was, here and there in other books. He would show up in other series, as backup, backup character.
Yeah.
I did read a lot of, Who's Who and Showcase, and there's Secret Origins. I think that he showed up a few times as a side character and some other things.
The reason I was asking, so I have not read this yet. It is very much on my list of things to read. It's Jeff Lemire. I'm going to read it. I have to. That's the deal with the devil that I made. So I'm always going to read Jeff Lemire. But the reason I was asking is that there's been a lot of talk about this book, both on other podcasts that we listen to and in the comics book community. And it seems like there's sort of two camps that I've noticed, right, that are kind of broken off. Like the people who grew up reading JLA, who are very steeped in the history and the canon of DC and this character, they didn't seem to like this book as much. The people who are like, I mean, I'm not just tethered to that version of this character, or I'm cool with like the absolute idea, just in general. I'm okay with changes, and let's see where they go and take weird places. They've loved this. Like that is extremely cool. So it's interesting how there's kind of this split of people who can't or who haven't untethered some of these characters from like that long history and canon. And I guess it's true of whatever. I mean, I know some people who are like, oh no, I love absolute Wonder Woman and don't care that they changed everything. But that absolute Superman's not John Byrne's Superman. So I don't like this. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. It's just interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think with this one, though, and it's interesting that people who are invested in classic Firestorm, the Ronnie and Stein Firestorm, don't really like this, because this is Ronnie and Stein, but they're trapped. Some things happen. And actually, Stein himself, there is, a quick aside that he's no longer in there. Like, he, as Stein, is no longer part of the Matrix, maybe. So there's some possibility there that it's just Ronnie himself against whatever demons the Firestorm Matrix has created for control of the body. So, we won't know until Lemire reveals it. So that's the kind of thing. So if somebody's not giving it a chance because, this isn't the wisecracking, fun Firestorm that I'm used to, well, he's in there somewhere. He's buried. We see him. We get that. We get those 4 pages of classic, 80s storytelling comics right there. But, just like in Black Hammer's universe, where sometimes you get those throwback stories where it just feels like a fun, nostalgic trip. There are changes, there are possibilities, there's a conflict here, and hopefully they'll solve it before Firestorm goes off and murders a couple thousand more people. So we have a quick comment here from Olajuwon. Hello, Olajuwon. Thanks for hopping on. Hey, I'll enjoy your content and your vast knowledge of comics and movies. It is great to see you on here, Alex Olajuwon. I'm really happy to see you. So thanks for joining.
Yeah. I think a lot of the promise there was with Firestorm was never really realized. He never became a heavy hitter.
No,
he never became.
And he was in the cartoons too. He was on Super Friends.
And I think his treatment in Super Friends is excellent.
Yeah,
I love that he's kind of the audience. when they introduce him as part of the superpowers team.
Yeah.
There's some great moments with him. I think of Identity Crisis where Ronnie gets pierced, and the nuclear energy is basically gonna level, states, and he doesn't even hesitate about flying up and going supernova to avoid that. And some of the commentary from some of the characters were like, yeah, the kid knew what to do, and and I don't know why. And I think it's interesting. In Squadron Supreme, which was Marvel's version of the Justice League, the counterpart character is named Nuke, and Nuke has a line at one point during the classic 12-issue series of, why doesn't anyone like me? And I just think, that was an unfortunate situation where the character was a bit forced. His membership into the Justice League was fast-tracked, let's put it that way.
Right.
Which I thought was also good because it was a younger member than everybody who, at this point, if they weren't middle-aged, they sure felt it as a reader, It's interesting that Lemire is the one doing this, because I think if there's somebody that can take the character to another level of prominence, whatever's going on with this fucked up stuff in the town and everything, he's somebody I would has the know-how to do it.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
He gave depth to Moon Knight, so he can do anything.
And I know with the character's history got a bit confused. Ronnie was dead, no, he's alive. Stein was dead, no, he's alive. The Jason Roush series is pretty interesting, especially the elements of child abuse that are in there, that gave that character another element of humanity. The depiction on Legends of Tomorrow, I think, is with a version of Jason known as Jax, completing the Matrix after Ronnie died. That very very special relationship he had with Martin Stein in that particular series.
I loved the two of them in Legends of Tomorrow. I thought the Firestorm character, the two actors together were great, and also just the interaction, because most of Stein, when they're combined, it's in his head, so you got the voice going on there, and it's a ton of fun because.
And
who doesn't love
too?
Oh yeah,
that was some of the coolest effects on Legends of Tomorrow were the Firestorm transformations. Yeah,
they're a hoot. That show touched on so much of DC lore, and I'm so happy that it happened, and we got 5 seasons of it.
Yeah, it wasn't afraid to be a comic book. That's what I loved.
No,
I mean, it was hokey. It was tongue in cheek. It wasn't, it wasn't necessary. I mean, there are ways that you can make these characters highbrow and give them a lot of depth and verisimilitude, and then you can just be like, no, this is a like not so smart dude with a group of friends and a freeze gun. Like,
there you go. And they would have one episode where there were soul crushing ramifications, across generations, and the next one was a giant Bebo.
Bebo, I love Bebo.
Yeah,
Bebo. I've got that stuck in my head. Sorry.
Who is this voice actor of Steve that we've uncovered tonight?
It's
like you've done Bevo, you've done Timmy from
Simpsons voices.
Yeah. Like, where did this come? What did you do in South Dakota?
I can tell you what I did. I watched Orgy of the Dead 2, and that will change your life, guys. And I'll talk about it when I get to it. Anyway, I'm a changed man from that. Oh, but yeah, that was my first pick.
Okay. Well, as I hinted when we were talking about introductions, Caleb actually went back to an actual Gerry Conway book.
Yep.
And why don't you tell us about your choice there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went back to June of 1977. So I mentioned earlier when we were talking, obviously
Earlier than that, buddy. You said 77.
71. Sorry. No, it's here's why I messed that up. The issue that I'm going to be talking about is Daredevil number 77, which was originally published. The publishing date is June of 71. And the reason I'm talking about this book is just to really showcase, number one, just the footprint and the imprint that he had on these comics. But like I said, he was not writing, he was not writing the mainstream. He was not the very public figure when I, was in high school and stuff like that. He was not the it guy. But I've read a lot of his stuff in retrospect, right? Like I had to go back and find it. And so through the Marvel Masters work and things like that. And I love the stuff. And he wrote some of my favorite characters of all time. And he may not have created them, but he certainly had a major impact on them. Like Bill said, he is the voice of a lot of people's Spider-Man. For me, two of my main and favorite characters are the Incredible Hulk and Namor the Submariner. Sorry, I can't speak. I almost said Submariner because my husband was picking on me earlier.
Hey, I said that for years. Don't feel bad.
Yeah.
I still do.
Submariner.
He's a submariner.
But so reading these books, and you just realize how much of an impact and how important he was to maybe not the formation of these characters, but certainly to the legacy of these characters and building upon what was there before, but really solidified the way that we know them now. So now you're sitting there saying, well, Caleb, if two of your favorite characters are Namor and the Hulk, then why are you talking about a Daredevil book? So Gerry Conway had obviously a very important run on both of those characters, but he teamed up with Gene Colan, and they had a really, really great run on the Submariner, right? But they set the stage in Daredevil 77. That came out the issue before that they took over for Roy Thomas on the Submariner book. And they really kind of launched it out of here. So this book is a Daredevil story, and right about this time you've got Daredevil who's mopey and Daredevil-y, right? Like he's swinging through town and just lamenting about the fact that Karen Page, she couldn't be with him and be with Matt Murdock, and it's all sadness. Well, this is very much in the era where they were, lots of crossover events, and all these characters are, around in Manhattan in this age. So of course, as Daredevil's swinging through, who sees him? Well, none other than Spider-Man, right? Peter Parker himself, who's hanging on the wall. And as he sees Daredevil go by, Peter just says, now there's a guy who's got a better life than me. He's got nothing wrong. He's just a man without fear. No problems. I bet he doesn't have anything to deal with. Meanwhile, I just lost the love of my life. I can't get my life together. Everything has gone wrong since I stopped that guy or didn't stop that guy. And gotten bit by that spider, which also, Pete, before any of that happened, your parents got taken out, bro. Like it wasn't that good before you were Spider-Man. So, but and this is right after Gwen Stacy, who won't be with him because she's convinced that Spider-Man killed her father. I mean, there's lots of lamentations, and so you get these two little mopey, introspective guys doing their own thing, and then of course you've got to have some implementing event. Well, as they are swinging out, they see this kind of crowd gathering around, and all of a sudden there's this big giant golden teardrop that shows up, and which causes a lot of attention. And this voice is emanating from this teardrop, and it's it says, which one of you is the one that calls himself the Submariner? Where is Namor? I need this person. Well, Namor has been at this time also not having a great life. He's lost his kingdom. He's been cast out of the ocean. He's decided he's going to go incognito, and he's just going to walk around the land of man doing things. And he's really trying to keep a low profile because up until this point, every time Namor tries to do something, it floods an entire nation or some shit like that, causes major wars. So it's like, he's kind of a big deal, but can't seem to keep himself out of trouble. And so he's just going to ride this out and it's not going to show anybody. But then Daredevil shows up and there's a mix up, right? All of a sudden Namor just uncloaks himself and, you're not going to insult me, land dweller and weird glowy sky person and things like that. And he kind of shows himself. Well, Daredevil doesn't know what's happening, so Daredevil goes on the attack. He just knows, hey, Namor, bad guy, fought the Fantastic Four, kind of nefarious. It seems like might have some things going on. Probably a terrorist. Let me go ahead and get after him because this seems like some nastiness here. Well, misunderstanding, I guess, so to speak. And they start to do battle. Well, Spider-Man jumps in. He's going to get in the mix too. He's like, hey, you can't attack my that guy. He's a good guy. You're not a good guy. So we're gonna get at it. Well, just again, very formulaic, setting the stage. We see this all the time in Marvel and in superhero comics. Period. The heroes have to fight each other before they can realize that they're not actually enemies and on the same page. And that is inevitably what happens in this story. And they see a lot of as they are trying to figure out who this glowy teardrop of radiation person is, and she eventually does unmask herself, to loop them off into a nether dimension and do some space exploration. But they've got to duke it out for a little bit. It's there's no spoiling things here. This is from 1971. It's really fun. It's really hokey comics, but it's also a lot of depth to it, right? They really showcase how much they care about these characters. They showcase the personal lives of these characters. We can talk about Conway's writing all the time, and there's a lot of these are great depictions of these characters. But Gene Colan's artwork that you're seeing on the page right here, especially the way that he draws Daredevil and the motions of Daredevil, the flipping and stuff like that, it's to me, I feel like it's got a little, a lot of Ramita in there too, but it's also just very much Gene Colan. And I think it's wonderful. I always forget that during this era, Mary Jane was blonde. Because there's blonde Mary Jane.
I don't think she was.
No, I was going to ask. Is that just a is that just a
I don't think she was. I think that's just a mistake.
Maybe because she looks a lot. I mean, she looks a lot like Gwen Stacy when they draw her like this.
That's what I was thinking. Did she dye her hair blonde?
I'm thinking of that the issues of Spider-Man during this time, and she was always a redhead. So I think it just would have been an error.
Okay, so that's interesting. Like just a miscoloration, a color imprint, a color misprint.
That changes the story entirely if she's blonde.
Yeah.
It could be that the artist thought they were coloring Gwen.
Well, and Gwen makes an appearance in the story, so that's a very right before this. So that is very possible. But that's interesting. I was reading this and I was like, I don't remember this happening, but I wasn't there. So maybe it was. I don't know. I'll take it. It says Mary Jane. It's not hard to follow. Also, now we know Pete's secret. So there's a joke there. Obviously, are you going to gape all night? If you're doing it right, yeah. Oh
boy, Peter.
I really enjoy these stories. I really enjoy the action of it. These go back to when these characters are very, 77 issues into Daredevil, but these characters are still very close to, they haven't been around for 60 years. I mean, you can go to the golden age with Namor, but, they're still relatively new. They're still relatively fleshing out, and they're just fun. And I absolutely enjoy seeing Namor, who I know and have read way more Namor in this era than I have Daredevil. And I like seeing that interaction between them. I like seeing how you learn things about Matt Murdock and Peter Parker in juxtaposition to who Namor is in fleshing out these characters. And those are very big characters, and put three of them in a single book and have this big fight is big doings. Today, I mean, that'd be, a pretty big deal too. But I thought it was a great setup to lead into the Submariner run that they did together. I forget, Bill, I know they had it wasn't a long stint on the character, but it was still a really fun book while they were running on it. So, I read this, and I think, Bill, you can comment on how you read it, but I read it in the Masterworks edition.
Yeah, I read it in the digital version of the Masterworks.
Okay. Yeah. Fun way to collect these stories. These are great bang for your buck if you don't want to get the big honking omnibus. These are a little bit smaller, a little bit less unwieldy, but still great. They look great on a shelf, and I'm glad to have it. So, yeah, go check out the story.
Yeah. The thing that I really appreciated is, and again, this is fairly early in Gerry's career, how well he could do Stan.
Yeah.
In some of the alliteration and some of the wisecracking, but that he was still tying everything together under his own voice. This also leads into his Submariner run, so its inclusion in that Masterworks makes perfect sense. But I did really enjoy that. He was a very different writer from Roy Thomas, like right off the bat. Much less sterile isn't the word, but less conservative. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
In terms of dialogue and in terms of the interactions between the characters. And Steve, I did provide just one graphic that I just had to get in there because
you did.
Gerry Conway unknowingly has a role in rock history here because again, Caleb, as he was talking about the teardrop appearing in Central Park, and then at some point the teardrop explodes. And if you know your music, then you know that was the name of Julian Cope's group before he went solo, which, if you've never heard, is just a wonderful marriage of post-punk and psychedelia. Only were together for 2 albums. There's also a third of demos and B-sides, and there's also another album of demos, but a very compact recorded legacy, but very good stuff. Very, very good stuff. And I just see that, and that's like my happy clappy moment.
I never made that connection reading that. I think that's awesome. I never knew that.
Yep.
By the way, these comics, if you're looking for band names, like 70s comics are a great place to mine your band names. I
also think that line, that's something Stan could never come up with, nor Roy Thomas. They're just different types of writers. They might have, in terms of the plot and in terms of the machination. What is it with me in machinations tonight? I got to drop that word. But just in terms of the way that they propel stories, they'd use different tools and different words, but and it's kind of hippie-ish too, which is pretty cool. So kudos Gerry on something that I don't even know if he knew he did that, but
I do got to say, and this is not necessarily shade, it may come off as shade, I think I prefer, as far as like the drawing of Namor, their body style, I like Ross Andrews' Namor a little bit better than Cohen's.
I'd agree.
Out.
Yeah, I really like Ross Andrew as an artist.
I do too. Yeah,
I'm not as crazy about his DC stuff. I think when he got to Marvel, and maybe it's the choices of inkers that he was working with, I thought that's when he really coalesced. And to me, he's still that's my Spider-Man. Looks like Ross Andrew. Doesn't look like Ditko. Doesn't look like Romita, but almost looks like Romita. But to me, Spider-Man looks the way, and Peter Parker especially, looked the way that Ross Andrew drew him.
Yeah, his Peter Parker is too thick to me. Like it's too the way he draws Daredevil's body is actually, to me, it's the way he ought to draw Peter Parker's body. His Peter Parker is a little bit like chestier.
But also think of it. He's a college student now, and he probably put on the freshman 15.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I didn't think about that. You're fair. Oh, the freshman 15.
Yeah. Oh, all right. I guess it's my turn. All right. So another property that Gerry Conway was very well associated with was Justice League of America. He had the reins on that team for 8 years. I actually was a little disappointed when he became the writer when I was reading comics as a kid in the 70s, because he just came off of Steve Englehart's amazing run. But one thing that they did benefit from at the beginning of his run was when it was 50-60 cent book, and the stories were like 36 to 38 pages, and that's the perfect length for Justice League stories. Perfect length. I don't think you could get away with it these days, mainly because I don't think you can have an artist that would put together a 38-page book monthly.
That's
But a giant size story works, and then it got trimmed, and I have to say that his run kind of disappointed me, but looking back, I just don't understand why, because there were a lot of cool developments. You had team members leaving for very sensible reasons. Green Arrow doesn't really fit with the team. Why is he in space battling Martians and Uranians when there's drug dealers that he's more suited to battle? Membership offer to Black Lightning, and again, just took the thing, took the the tact of hey, I'm a street fighter, this is not for me. Would have been nice if it wasn't couched in jive turkey language, but that was 70s. And then Firestorm's introduction to the team, Zatanna's introduction to the team, things that like really didn't get followed up on but should have, like Barry Allen and Zatanna becoming an item very briefly, and some kind of sexy scenes with the two of them, with water boiling over, and looking back, I think he was a better Justice League writer than I gave him credit for, because I do think that's like a really hard book to write for, to come up with adversaries and know that whatever you have planned for a year, at least 1/4 of it is going to be taken by the JLA JSA annual team up. It seems that especially in the Bronze Age era, that may have been a tough book to write for. And again, the note that he goes out on is the Justice League Detroit era, which I always thought was unfairly maligned. And honestly, if that book was called Aquaman and the Outsiders, there would be like, but Aquaman and the Outsiders, that should have run for 50 issues. That it had the Justice League name, and people were pissed that they didn't look like the members that they knew. So there's a connection with Gerry Conway and Justice League that went on for a very, very long time. Right now, we have one of Jerry's disciples, Mark Waid, however you look at it, is the current writer of Justice League Unlimited. And I just wanted to throw this up, kind of as an update, because as many times as we talked about DCKO books on the show, we never talked about the culmination of it. And this is actually like the first step after. So KO ended with number 5. Superman was the victor, but in receiving the Omega energy, he dispersed it among who they think are the other heroes and villains that were present. Some apparently have more powers and aren't telling people. We'll get to that. And Clark disappears from the scene. Nobody knows where he is. So the Justice League come back, and this is the first issue after they're back from their experience with the KO Omega level battles. Steve, I know you have some graphics here, and I think I gave them to you in a shitty order, but we'll see. So if you could just go to the next graphic, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, so we have some people returning here. And some of these heroes are not the same. Aquaman has a power level that is off the charts. We'll know more about that as part of his Emperor Aquaman series. That is, I think the first issue is out now. Cyborg saw some shit from in terms of him connecting with bio and biomechanical constructs during the war, and as you could, not the war but the contest, and his mind is elsewhere. They did see some premonitions coming up, and that particularly affected Shazam, in that he's seeing a somewhat evil version of himself that he can't quite understand. Hawkman is being haunted by visions of his wings on fire and him not having the wings. So Justice League members are going through some stuff, and they know that they have to regroup, especially without Superman. And one of the things that they decide to do, because there were villains that were essential in securing Superman's victory during the contest, is that they're going to experiment with some clemency. And they decided, again, this is called Villain Amnesty, starts here. This is the first issue of that arc, that there are 5 villains that immediately went into the Phantom Zone as a temporary prison that they are going to offer amnesty to in exchange for helping the Justice League out and seeing if they can help reform some of these. Now, 2 of these are kind of anti-heroes anyway, but the 5 that they are offering this to are Lex Luthor, Giganta, Harley Quinn, Lobo, and Killer Shark. So you got a few interesting stories coming up there. You know there's going to be one betrayal out of that group at least, but I think it does make sense given some of these characters have kind of operated more on the side of angels recently, that this is extended to them, and that it comes through a device like Justice League membership is pretty interesting. Steve, if you can go over to the next slide. So here we have the Watchtower, and we're seeing the Earth effectively repair itself, going back to the state it was pre-KO. Some of that may be Superman's energy, some of that may not. The story will be told eventually, but there is a very real terroristic threat. If you go over to the next page, we have the discussions of that, and this is something going on that we can see that they're planning something, these terrorists. Then they're hit with a boom, and on the next page, yes, it is the Justice League, but not the members that you're expecting. It's Lex Luthor, it's Starro, which may be Jarro. We'll find that out. And Giganta, here to quash that. And I thought it was a really fun way of getting back into the Justice League. Seeing these like very serious character moments, but then throwing in something as fun as treating the villains as heroes, as comic booky as it gets. And with all the initiatives going on with DC right now with the next level, this certainly fits into that, with these new arcs. Basically everything started with a new arc in March, pretty much, of the established books, along with the next level titles. And I'm interested in seeing where this goes, because it's not going to be a straight line. It's going to go like this, and that means there's going to be some fun stories there.
I love that Red Tornado is in this too, especially with what's going on with Red Tornado recently.
Yeah,
that's going to be interesting.
And basically, it's worth saying this. Basically, everybody is a member of the Justice League right now.
Yeah,
it's like it's everybody who's ever been a hero qualifies, and in the
hell, we're members.
And the kids, I have that card. I got that card from the comic book store. I'm a recruit. The teams that are put together are suited for the missions that lay ahead for them. But again, the serious tinges. Some characters aren't. They went through some shit, and we're gonna follow up on that. The absence of Superman right now is huge, not just because of his power level, but of the leader that he is. And I think it's a great way to continue from KO. I thought it was an absolutely great way to continue from that, and a very comic booky way of doing that. So I was happy to see that.
Cool.
All right. Well, we're going to put some of the conventional comics to the side and take a visit to some more independent-minded stuff now for the back half. And Steve, why don't you take us through a book that you're going to talk about with a very familiar name if you've been used to this show?
Absolutely.
Or two, actually.
So, or two. Well,
Two, yeah.
yeah. We are big fans of these women, these creators out of Italy. They are wonderful, wonderful people. And we've actually, or they've been working on a new series. Yolanda Zanfredino specifically has been working on this series with several other people in through Kickstarter and the publisher Tightrope. And this is one of the books that they've had. I've talked about the first issue when it came out last year. I was a big supporter. I was super happy to see it. And issue number 2 just was released and sent out to all of the backers. If you had gotten the digital version, it actually came out, I believe, about a month ago. So you were able to read it a little bit earlier. But I held off because I knew I had my physical copy coming, and I had to have it in my greedy little paws. So I am talking about No Saints Nor Poets, number 2. And let me see if I can pull it up right here. I've got a couple images that I was able to share. There we go. Awesome. So the story in this is actually, it's a continuation, obviously, of the first issue. The two main characters that we have here, we've got Flynn, who's kind of the, happy-go-lucky, a bit crazy, very seductive. He's totally, the type that will charm the pants off of you and then sell those pants. But he and his... I guess partner is probably the best way to put it. Partner both in business, but also, romantically. They are both, and that's Pierre. Pierre himself, he's actually a priest, or maybe a defrocked priest is a better way to put it, because he quit the church given the injustice and, the lack of empathy for the people in this city who are suffering. So there was a great flood in the past that flooded out all of the poor parts of the city, and all of the wealthy aristocrats are living behind these giant dammed walls that keep them safe and dry, and everybody who can't afford to be there, having to contend with living on boats, but also with the sea monsters that came with the massive flooding. So it's kind of a double-edged or a double threat for living as the less fortunate people outside the city. But one of the things that this couple do is they do odd jobs, and their latest odd job is escorting a particular aristocrat to their Schnooky Wookums hookup in the poor part of the city. And that, it doesn't go too well for the aristocrat. In fact, there's a lot of, throwing of things and screaming of obscenities when he and his lover don't see eye to eye. And so, of course, they're like, well, I guess this isn't going to be a run that we'll be making anytime soon again, because, they've just broken up. So I guess we got to take this richy rich guy back to, to the fancy part of town. But of course, Flynn works his magic on him and is able to kind of schmooze his way into an invitation into the fancy part of the city. So I thought this was really fantastic because he goes back into sort of how they met, but also how they got so close. Because Flynn, of course, being kind of a con man, was caught begging for money or pretending to be a vicar for the church and getting money to repair the roof. The cops found him, threw him at Pierre and said, hey, this guy's pretending to be part of your church. And Pierre was like, I see somebody who needs help, but also he's kind of hot. And basically says, no, he's working for me. It's all good. But instead of just letting him go at that point, he says, you know what? You've been impersonating a victor. I need you to be here with me for a month, and we'll see how you actually get along, because I think that there's more to you than just some crook. and you know, he sees his generosity. Of course, he's stealing stuff and doing all these things too, but he's also giving back to the poor, the people who need it. So that's where they kind of really see the compassion and the, you know, the depth of each other's personalities, and then get closer and closer, and until they eventually go into business together, as well as, you know, cuddles. But I love these characters. I love the storytelling. I think it's fun. The art is gorgeous. The colors are brilliant. So the writer and, of course, creator here is Yolanda Zanfardino. Love her stuff. Alice's Adventures Through Leatherland, and, you know, any number of other great books here. The art is by Martina Belli. Colors are by Ilaria Chioca. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then Elena Barbieri did the translation into English. So yay. And Tightrope Press, of course, is putting this out, so you can get copies of the book through them. Or you could take a look out for the Kickstarter, which the pre-page is live right now for issue number 3. So it is going to be a 6-issue series altogether. So if you're looking forward to, if you've read the first 1 or 2, if you haven't read the first 2, go check out their page on Kickstarter for number 3. You can get copies of the previous 2 issues as well, digitally or physically. And this one actually came with a really cool door, like do not disturb door thing. Do not disturb, or fighting sea monsters. That I thought
we need to bring
really
that to Heroes.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, I love supporting anything that they do, and I'm never disappointed. It's just it's joyful comics. It's comics for comics, and I love them. So
I want to say 2 things. First, we have offered many times for them to come on the show, and again, there was hesitation because of the language barrier.
And the time difference. It's like a 6 hour, I think 5 or 6 hours difference.
Maybe we can find somebody who speaks Italian.
Ooh.
You know, so that there's a comfort level there. The other thing I have to say that immediately called out to me, what fantastic costume design.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Just even the simple robes on that first page of the storyline. It is just wonderful.
I mean, there's just, you know,
look,
these characters,
Chef's kiss.
I love them, you know, and of course they're drawn very sexily, but they're just, I think the way that they're designed, the costumes, and of course we're only just starting to see the aristocratic side of things. So it's a small, you know, small hint. It's kind of, I guess, what is that? What's the era before Regency? Sort of like 1700s, late 1700s, maybe Venice meets England. I'm not really sure the time frame because I'm not the costume expert. That's my husband. But yeah, I mean, it's fun design. I love it, and the characters are fun. The story is cute and bubbly, and it's going in a direction that I'm excited to see what happens. So. No Saints Nor Poets from Tightrope Press.
Okay, cool.
Very nice.
Cool. All right, Caleb, over to you. What have you got for us?
I'm going to branch away from the cute and bubbly. We're just going to go to the other side of things. We're going to go talk about some grotesque and you know, horror. Which is right in my wheelhouse. So there I was the other day, minding my own little business and flipping through or scrolling through the app, as it were, looking for something to read. And I saw this really fun cover. And it was this guy behind a door, or behind, you know, and there was like a glass viewing door, kind of looks like a cell, and his neck was all cocked to the side. It was very creepy. And the title really stuck out to me. And the title is called The Thing on the Doorstep. And I was like, okay, you've got my attention. It's Image Comics too, so that's a mark of quality for the most part. Let's see what this is. So I opened it up, and there's 3 issues available. I'll give the first one a try. Who's this by? Well, it's written by somebody named Simon Burks, who I'm not really familiar with. Art by Willie Roberts, again, who I'm not familiar with, and letters by Rob Jones, who I'm just not real familiar with. And I was like, okay. New characters, new creators. This is fun. Let's see where this goes. First page, first little word block. Arkham Sanatorium, 1933. fuck, we're talking about Lovecraft. Let's go. Right? You've got me at this point. So this story is kind of it's right within that Lovecraftian wheelhouse. Immediately just set the tone, and I already felt the vibe from what I was in for. And it shows you that very early 1930s architecture as they're leading into the building. And through the opening pages, there is an African American gentleman who's entering the building, and he's walking past the nurses, and he's being escorted down the hall by a guard. And they unlock. He's got the big guard keychain with the 1,000 high school janitor keys, and they unlock the door, and they're looking in, and there's this Caucasian man, very slender, very sunken face, just kind of head down, weird Joker grin, and just smiling at them, very unsettling. And second page, it's the African American gentleman just pulls a pistol and says, "I will avenge you, Edward," and then shoots the guy in the face. Oh, like this is just just impactful, right within my wheelhouse. We've got Lovecraftian horror, a good murder scene, something weird's happening. Where are we going with this? And who knows? Well, it takes us back to 1899. We get a flashback, right? And we see two boys. One is a young Caucasian boy. The other one's a young African American boy. And they are in this very well-to-do house. There's a museum, if you will. There's a selected works of the macabre. And they're looking at all these pictures, and they're talking, and they start getting to know each other. Well, as the story unfolds, obviously the one boy is Caucasian boy, as you might imagine that area, is a well-to-do little guy. He's got a good family. He's from good pedigree. The African American boy is not treated in any kind of, at least in my saying this as a white dude reading this book, is not treated in any kind of like racially stereotypical way that I could tell. But he's interjecting himself into this Massachusetts family, where are things going, and they become quick and fast friends. The story is very fast paced. It skips a little bit to 1904. They've grown up a little bit, and they're inside a library, kind of a family library. And the boy, the younger boy, pulls a book off the shelf, and it's got the Necronomicon symbol on it. And they're talking, and the younger white boy is Edward, as you might kind of gather, who ended up getting shot in the face in the 30s a little bit later. He doesn't know that yet. Spoilers. So he's in this library, and he pulls this Necronomicon book, and out of nowhere walks this very Rasputin-looking old man with a beard and kind of sunken cheeks and everything, and just wants to know if he can see the book. And Edward's, with all the power and the privilege of a well-to-do young white boy in the early 1900s, is like, maybe when I'm done with it, he's not respecting his elders. There's something off about this guy. And the guy just kind of very, in the most Rasputin-esque way, just walks off and just kind of growling. 1905, they take us to Christmas, and the boy's been invited to Edward's house. And really at this point, I think we get the name mentioned one time earlier, but we find out that the young African American's name is Daniel. And by this time, they've become fast friends, and they've grown, and they're teenagers, and Daniel's got a mustache now, and you start to see how they're deviating in life. Daniel, the young African American boy, is, he's grown into a young African American man, and he's just trying to figure out his life and maybe meet a nice girl and find a way to settle down. But Edward has really delved into the supernatural and wanting to explore that and trying to see the spooky side of the life. And with a library with books with the Necronomicon symbol, why wouldn't he? The family's not super thrilled about this, and they're not really quite sure what to do. Time jump again to 1908, and Daniel's met a girl, and they're going to get married. Edward's gone off to school and come back and has seen the world, and it is just a little bit different, but they've got this bond, and Edward's telling Daniel all about Miskatonic University and just all the weird things that happen there, again, just steeped in Lovecraft lore. As they grow older and they have kids, things really start to unravel, and Daniel becomes more and more distant, more and more aloof and sunken in, isn't talking as much, isn't connecting as much, and he's really spending a lot more time in the library. which leads him to some dark secrets, or at least some books, and he is convinced now that there's something, to borrow Bill's word, there's machinations at foot that no one else seems to know about. That they're not sure what's happening, and they're trying to make a deal, and they're trying to rely on each other. And at the end of the first issue, we're now at 1928, right? We're 5 years away from the headshot that we know is coming, and there's apparently a lot that happens in those 5 years, and Daniel is visiting, and on and off again, and Edward is really trying to unpack his family legacy, and is trying to really come into his own as this familial heir to this palatial estate that he has, and also being this purveyor and student of the otherworldly and things that are supernatural in era. And he goes to the asylum that's there, and he's asking about the former librarian that had helped him find the books, and they're like, she's not here anymore. And he's like, oh, well, when did she pass? I didn't know. Oh, well, she hasn't passed. She's lost her mind. And they show her in a padded room, and she's biting off her fingers, and she's using the blood to draw, I'm going to air quote this, but satanic symbology. All the weird occult symbolism that you can see with Lovecraft, including, the eyeball with the tentacles of the great and the elder gods and things like that. Where does it go from there? Well, I know, because I've read issues 2 and 3, and it gets better. It gets really fun. It gets really deep into Lovecraft lore, and it's a slow burn. It's interestingly a slow burn because you have all these time jumps, and it moves very quickly. But like a good Lovecraft story, this is not an action story, right? There's a lot of dialogue. There's a lot of talking. There's just a lot of world building and getting to know people. But it's, there's not a whole lot of punching and fighting, but there doesn't need to be, because it started off with a headshot, right? I think this is a super fun series. If you enjoyed, now look, it's not as good as the Necronomicon, because not everybody can be Alan Moore. Is it as good as Providence? Probably not. To me, it's got very similar pacing, and maybe exposition and character exploration as Providence, but it's right in that Providence wheelhouse and stuff. So if that is your niche, if you are interested in that, you need to get on to whatever legal way of getting comics that you have, or go to the place that you order your comics from, and then check this book out, because I think that you are absolutely going to enjoy this if that's your vibe, because I damn sure did. And Steve is now showing us the writing team gave little blurbs and breakdowns in the back of the book of the creative team, tells you a little bit who they are, and where they come from, and you get a little bit about their background. So if I see these folks with names on books again, I'm likely to pick them up, because I think there's some quality and talent here. So good stuff.
Awesome. I think the last pure Lovecraft books that I've read recently, I mean, Providence was, untouchably gorgeous, and, very weird and dry and contemplative at times, and just freaky and maddening at others. But Aftershock was putting out a couple, here and there, a couple books. Miskatonic University, there were a couple specials with that. So it's really cool to see that there's still a lot of interest to mine from Lovecraft. I mean, he may have been a terrible person, but the legacy of the worlds that he kind of created and had a hand in creating, but of course have then taken off life of its own, with all the other writers and creators that have come after him that have helped mold it into something really fantastic. So that's cool. It's cool.
I had no idea I wanted to get fucked in the attic of a church over a gym until I read Providence, but that seemed like it was fun for those guys. So
I mean, it was pretty fun for Mink Stoll too, with Divine back in Multiple Maniacs. But that wasn't in an attic. That was right there in the pews.
An observation, not a criticism about Providence.
Mm-hmm.
And there were points where it didn't feel like I was reading a comic.
Right.
Yeah.
With Providence.
I mean, it's Alan Moore, so he's got a lot to say.
But even something like League, he's just so good at crafting that particular art form. Providence felt the most disconnected from it.
Interesting.
I thought of his work.
I can see that. Yeah. I think
even more than From Hell. And From Hell is, that's, I think because of how basic Campbell's drawing was a factor, and just the weird formatting it often would be presented in.
And that's not a problem with Jason Burrows stuff. I mean, talk about
detail. Not at all.
No, the thing with Providence, though, that I agree with you, but so much of Providence is you had to read the handwritten notes.
Yes.
Oh,
absolutely.
You can skip that part if you want to and still read a great story, but to get the full Alan Moore of it all, you've got to read the handwritten notes.
Even more than the pirate shit in Watchmen. Even more.
You're in for a long haul if you pick up an issue of.
I can't believe I called it the pirate shit.
The pirate shit from Watchmen. Whatever that is.
But I think that probably plays a lot into it. Why it did feel so very novelistic, because it's like reading a novel, and you can't speed through that book even if you're just looking at the art.
And it was also the kind of thing you buy that first issue, you're locked.
Yeah, you've got to be.
It's foregone.
Yep.
Locked, trapped, in a descent into madness, basically.
Yes. Okay, so I guess I have a book to talk about now. The book that I chose, this was well before we had the news of Gerry Conway, and spotlighted some very conventional superhero comics. But something that I've been buying a lot of lately, mostly with DC, have been the facsimile editions. And I have like weird rules, like if I already had the pirate shit, how dare you, sir? The pirate shit, the director's cut. Okay.
How very dare you, sir? I beg your finest pardon.
Good evening.
Evening, Governor. Okay. Anyway, before we go off on that, so I've been buying a lot of facsimile books, and I have weird rules. Like if I already have the book, I get the foil edition. So it doesn't feel like a double. Anyway, I buy a lot of facsimile books. The most fun ones, though, are the ones that you never had in your hands before, and Marvel has been doing a thing where they're putting out a number of books from a series. They did that with X-Men. They basically took care of the Phoenix Saga. God, it's
Saga.
Crazy. Yeah.
Saga?
It's a saga. Oh, it's an epic saga. And then
like the Vikings.
And then for Fantastic Four, I think they did the first year of the title, the first 12. Well, right now they're doing Silver Surfer from later in the 60s. And I'm not sure how far it's going to go, but I think they are at the very least going to solicit the first 7 issues, which were all oversized. It were 25 cents, where other books at that time were 12. And you got double the page stories. And they were all pretty epic stories. They were all self-contained with one issue, but they were pretty broad. And I had familiarity with them either through Masterworks earlier, through the Fantasy Masterpieces reprints. But when they solicited these, I just had to get this because this is the closest I'll ever come to owning these issues. Yep. And, a big deviation from the series was every appearance of the Surfer prior to this was written by Stan, but also drawn by Jack. Jack didn't have the bandwidth to do this as much as he wanted, so they gave it to John Buscema, and John Buscema certainly put his own stamp on this. He's very good with Kirby dots himself, but it's also the standard Buscema, very heroic pauses. He's Buscema is up there with Romita as far as I'm concerned with how characters pose these could be models. You could make Aurora models out of these, or I guess the later thing would be Bowen. And the design job's already done. You just have to replicate this. So as you see on the issue, stamped on the issue of the Silver Surfer facsimile edition #1, the origin of the Silver Surfer. Now we've already had the origin through the lens of the Fantastic Four arc where he came to pass, and there was also an annual story, again drawn by Jack, which filled in some of the gaps about Shalabal, his beloved, who he basically sacrificed himself and his planet to become the Herald. And we have a retelling of that story. Steve, if you could just take us through some of the graphics and just some of these excellent John Buscema art. We hear the declaration of the origin, that this is the story we're talking about. Again, where the Surfer was at this point, he was basically exiled to Earth. He could not go beyond the atmosphere or he would die. And they played on this on some stuff, but that was basically the story. So he has a lot of time on that surfboard to think to himself. Steve, if you can go to the next graphic, when they start recounting with his life as Norrin Rand, this absolutely spectacular depiction of Galactus, which again is a little bit different from Jack, very different muscular structure, a little different color scheme, but majestic all the same. Steve, if you can go to the next page, we see Norrin Rand accepting the duties of Herald of Galactus to be reborn. And in this next page, this is probably my favorite page in the book, is this next page is him emerging and rising from the first time as the Silver Surfer. And then we also have in the next graphic, if you can have that, that's where he reveals himself that he has become the Surfer to his beloved Shalabal and must soar alone. So again, this is kind of the third time the story was told, but at the same token, completely from the Surfer's perspective this time. And wasn't necessarily encumbered by it being part of another franchise's storyline in the franchise's book. Some of the other things that are so cool about the facsimiles, again, they use like very high quality paper, so the colors just shoot at you. You have the classic ads. So just imagine being somebody that you could buy for $3.15 each Marvel sweatshirts from 1967.
Oh my God!
That
a Marvel sweatshirt for $3.
For $3.15, or if you wanted the T-shirts up here, they were $1.60. You would pay a lot more than that today for this stuff. And then the issues that were oversized also had a backup feature, and this is something I think Caleb might be very interested in, which is the Watcher, and that's drawn by Gene Colan.
Yep.
And it goes through the Watcher's origins and about how he is unable to act or intercede. He can only be a watcher.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an issue that just touches on his origin. And something else Gene Colan was so good at is rockets. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Gene Colan, as far as just early sci-fi, like 60s era sci-fi, 70s era sci-fi, is amazing at that stuff.
Yeah. And then, apart from the marvelness of the issues, we also have like the classic ads, where you can get stamps or you can build up steel muscles quickly with super isometrics. You can buy bunny decals, just different enough not to get sued by Playboy. So.
But can you make money selling grit? That's what I want to know.
Oh God. I would love to see what happened to some of those people that actually had their pictures what the rest of their lives were like. Like I sold grit. You turned out to be like serial killer or something. That would be kind of.
It was a way to
Yeah.
case the houses of the
Yeah.
victims that they were.
And there's a lot of ways to read this material. You can read it through the Masterworks, through Omniboo, digitally, which Caleb and I gave a nod to earlier. But there's something very special about the tactile form of reading something that's as close as they can get to the actual original experience. So this is of the facsimile books. This is one I really highly recommend. Silver Surfer #1.
Awesome.
And
it's pretty cool. It is pretty, and it is kind of sad though. Every time I see the facsimiles, because my LCS does get a lot of them, it's just seeing the price in that corner box and going, so this was 25 cents when it first came out, and now it's $6.99. Oh man.
But also that 25 cents would have been like $3.99.
Yeah, it would have been a good amount of money at that point, but
it wasn't insubstantial. So
25 cents for that much.
It's and those foil covers. I mean,
they didn't do that back then. That's one thing they did not.
The one I would love to do, just because I would love, not that I'd buy it, but a foil cover of Doomsday Clock, just because those back covers got smudged so easily.
Facts. I got so mad at that shit.
Yeah, you could touch it once. Yeah,
just ink on your hand. Just
there's just
like a squid.
I don't know what was up with that. Yeah, I think Steve, I think we actually have that on a podcast.
I think so. I think
where said, just look at the back of it. You're like, oh, I think that was just before the pandemic.
Yeah, because we did
have had the
a couple issues.
Shoot.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we did a couple issues of Doomsday Clock as it was coming out, because it took 2 years to come out. So all 12 issues anyway.
That's facts.
Yeah.
So it's like every 6 months, it's like, hey, we haven't talked about this for a while. Last issue was 5. This one is 6.
Yeah. I don't go to a lot of book premieres, but Stager and I went to one for Doomsday Clock.
Really?
And there were Watchmen cupcakes and stuff. Oh, they really did a good job on that. And just the excitement of actually watching the Doomsday Clock countdown so you could buy the issue. That one was well done.
That's pretty awesome. So.
Yeah.
All
right. Well, we're going to start wrapping up this episode of the Comic Book Bears, and we have 2 destinations on our journey towards the end. And the first is where we show off our Geek Gets, things that are genre oriented that we picked up within the last 14 plus days in this case, since we last joined you. And Steve, who normally is the one with the fewest, I think has the most this time.
And I have to apologize in advance. I have so much. So I'm going to try to clip it as much as I can.
Steve, we're cool. We want to see this.
Awesome. We like nerd shit, turns out.
Yeah.
Yay.
Who would have thought?
So I know.
I'm walking away though.
Oh, okay. Bye. So like I'd said earlier in the show, I had the pleasure of attending the Screams by Night halfway to Halloween horror convention in Sioux Falls, South Dakota this past weekend. And John was nice enough to set aside a poster for me. And this is artwork actually done by Sam Wentz and featuring the 2 main guests. We've got Brink Stevens and Michelle Bauer, who are stars of such wonderful fare as Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bolorama, Nightmare Sisters, Sorority Massacre, things like that. Oh, of course, Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. And they both signed for me, which was wonderful. They were just an absolute treasure. It was a gift to get to talk to them and spend time with them. And Michelle Bauer is a hugger. She is very, very sweet. They're both very, very sweet. But yeah, it was great. And of course, the night before, the convention. The convention was on a Saturday. The night before, we had at the State Theater the showing of Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama on the big screen, maybe for the first time, because it was when it was produced, it went straight to video. It did not premiere in theaters. So we were all there and got to see this wonderful film on the big screen, and it was an absolute hoot. So much fun. You know, a lot of fun TNA. There's a puppet and you know, crazy some gore, some crazy ridiculous horror, and one of the characters ends up looking exactly like the Bride of Frankenstein. Can't really go into it. It is wild, but it also involves a car being flipped over at the end and exploding, which is like, oh my god, in this movie, you know, with this budget. But they did a great job. The cool thing was they did a giveaway right before the Q&A to whoever came the furthest to come see the movie. And I think most of the answers were Nebraska, North Dakota, Minnesota, and then me from North Carolina. And to win, I got a copy of Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bowl-O-Rama 2, which just came out a couple of years ago and was directed by Brink Stevens, who went from being, you know, filmed taking showers to filming those shower scenes herself. So it was a really fun, really fun role reversal there. But it also stars Kelly Maroney, who is another classic scream queen that we all love from Night of the Comet and a couple other movies as well. Chopping Mall, which we can, if you listen to Bear Cave of Terror, we did that a couple weeks ago. But yeah, so I'm excited to get that Blu-ray, which was wonderful. I also, during the convention, picked up a couple movies from some wonderful people that were there. Steve Livingood was another guest. He is he's a very accomplished podcaster, and he also is an actor and has been in several movies. So I picked up a couple from him. Creep Footage 3, Night Nurse, which is all found footage horror. And then Stoner Snake. It is about a snake that gets stoned. So Steve Livingood plays the dude that gets high with his snake, and then the snake eats him. So, you know, fun to watch. Can't wait to open these up. I haven't had a chance since I've been back. But also I ran into a filmmaking collective called Haj Bob. They're actually out of Nebraska, and they have a ton of movies. If you love sort of like sci-fi, horror, exploitation, they make the gamut. And they've got a really good set of work. But excitingly enough, last year they completed Orgy of the Dead 2, which, if you are familiar with the original Orgy of the Dead from 1965, it was written by Ed Wood and also starred Criswell, you know, who was the TV psychic at the time. But this one basically takes that exact same premise and revitalizes it for 2025, 2026. There's a lot of dancing naked ladies in this one. There's also a wolfman, a mummy, and a gorilla who practically are like MST3K commenting on the naked dancing ladies. There's lots of boobies and lots of blood and lots of other bodily fluids that are less pleasant to talk about, but absolutely hilarious. There's some really great lines in this one. Don't show it to your grandma. Yeah, I mean, or could, you know what, if she's into that kind of stuff, you know. Anyway, I did get this great print from Steve Livingood as well. It's a promotional thing that he signed for me about the clown harder, the clown dies at midnight, clown harder, where they are a pair of secret agents. The clown loves to kill people in interesting ways, including with a giant dildo, because of course, why not? And then I also got to pick up a couple books here. Fear Falls, which is a series of short stories by Mo Hurley, who is a local author. She was a gem. And then also Bad Hand Books was on hand. They have several great titles. I picked up No Gods for Drowning by trans and queer author Haley Piper. But also this year they're putting out a lot of Christopher Golden and Mike Mignola work. So you can actually get several of those books this year. They're putting out, I believe, 7 Christopher Golden books. And also something I'm really excited about. It's currently in the works right now. It's being released as newspapers, different volumes of newspapers, called The End Times, and it will be collected into a hardcover collection. That's written by Ben Percy and Stephen King, and it's a newspaper for a village after the apocalypse, essentially. So everything that's happening in the town, in terms of like, columns and recipes and little news stories and things, that does tell a greater narrative over the course of the releases of these individual newspaper issues. So super exciting stuff. Can't wait until it's collected. But if you're getting those newspapers now from Bad Hand Books, like, treat them like your comics, like treat them like Amazing Fantasy #1 or Amazing Fantasy #15, because they're cool.
The apocalypse newspapers might be the only industry that the apocalypse is good for.
Exactly. It'll bring back these newspapers. But yeah, so I got a whole bunch of stuff. And then also from Tom Devine, who is part of a Comic Book Look. He does have his own zine, so I picked up a couple issues at Rainbow Comics while I was there. So really excited to crack into these, and support the work of friends and fellow podcasters. So
yep. And now you know how I get around Matt Wagner, right?
Yeah.
I probably would be very similarly behaved around Christopher Golden.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But yeah, I had such a blast there and met all these great people, and I have to say, Bad Hand Books, I'm so excited for what they're putting out, and the fact that it is comics adjacent. So if you've ever read anything by Mike Mignola and Christopher Golden working together, they are putting out some of the stuff that they worked on together, but also Christopher Golden, amazing author on his own.
Yeah. So. Okay, cool. Over to Caleb. Caleb, what do you have in terms of Geek Gets?
So it has been 2 weeks of work, yard work, chores, more work and stuff. So I have no Geek Gets, but I would like to just remind you all that the Cubist Flamingo loves you. That's my.
Thank you, Cubist Flamingo.
Okay, in terms of my Geek Gets, they're all around one event, which luckily happened before the unplanned food poisoning. But this past Saturday was the most recent edition of Record Store Day. I am proud of myself because I keep myself in check. I have friends that have literally spent between $800 and $1,100 on Record Store Day.
It's easy to do,
but I can believe it. Yeah,
I have friends that literally have done that.
And they came home with 3 records.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do keep it in check, but I always get some stuff. And this year, I got the 2 items I really wanted to get. The first was a live single from Paul Weller. And if you are familiar with the Beatles, this is a very familiar trade dress, the Parlophone trade dress. I did get the Radio 1 Sessions album from Frankie Goes to Hollywood. We're going to get some shine there because of the computer screen here. But they did put out an edition a couple years ago, which was a cassette that they put out, and they just replicated the cassette on vinyl. And this time, these have already been released as part of a massive box set that they put out, but not on vinyl. So you have their earliest Radio 1 demo sessions from 82 to 83 on this. And then my last get was the reproduction of a promotional record from Kiss in the 1970s. It kind of spelled it out for you here. They really didn't bury the lead. A special Kiss album for a summer tour featuring cuts for all formats.
It really is a clever title. It's not vague.
So, and there's nothing special about these versions of Beth, Do You Love Me, Flaming Youth, and Detroit Rock City, but to get the original version of this probably would run to about like $800-$900. So sort of having that in my hand. So I'm happy my friends got stuff they were looking for. Everybody seemed to do okay. There's still one thing that I hope to eventually get. But again, it wasn't top of the stack. There's things that'd be nice to have, and then things you got to have. This isn't nice to have. But in terms of what this brings to certain record stores, I know that there are growing number of record stores that do not participate in Record Store Day, mainly because of the allocation issue, which I completely understand. But it's still a great day to celebrate music. I love, meeting people online, and had great conversations with a group of guys that I was with. We all came from very different standpoints musically, but you could tell the excitement was there for whatever we were talking about, and I just love that. So
I was bummed I did not get to go to my record store for Record Store Day, because they always do a big thing there, and I need to go by there soon, because they always keep some of the additional stuff here. And there's things I would like. I've flipped through it. There's things I would like to have. There's some hip hop albums that got produced, and some issued things.
Yeah, there's a Priest live album from 1990. Which is kind of the end of the first era. There's some stuff you definitely would be into.
Yeah,
that they had. Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna venture on to our final stop of the show tonight, which is where we talk about our woofs of the week. In the bear community, if you find a fellow attractive, you woof at him. And we do something very similar, where we woof at something, which may be comic book or comic book related, but it also may be a film or a TV program, concert, charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start, as I always do, with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
Well, my woof of the week was actually a documentary that I watched the other week, and was super excited to see it, and then really wanted to talk about it last Wednesday. But I've been just sitting on it since then, and now I get to share it with you guys. So this actually did come out, was premiered last year, but this year, just in the past week, was given a run in theaters across the country. And that is, of course, if I can bring it up, if it'll let me, Strange Journey, the story of Rocky Horror, by, I believe it's Linus O'Brien, who is Richard O'Brien's son. It's rare that I cry in a documentary about a rock musical. And this was so fun to watch. It's fun to see the story of how Rocky Horror came to be on the stage in the UK. And how it just sort of grew and grew and kind of grew crazy, wild, and popular when it premiered on stage in Los Angeles. It did not start, on stage in New York when it was brought to the US. It was in LA and became a huge, massive hit there. And unfortunately, I didn't realize this, but was a massive flop when it hit New York, because New York was very snobby about what they thought was acceptable on New York stages at the time, especially on Broadway. So it kind of opened and then closed unceremoniously quickly. So, but through a combination of magic, sheer luck, and fans that worked in Hollywood, it made it into being a film, and became, even though it was a massive flop when it premiered, it is now the longest continuously running film, I believe, ever, because there is somewhere where it's being played in a movie theater every single week, and has been since it first came out. So this film, this documentary is so heartfelt, it's so honest, and it gets to talk to pretty much everybody who you want them to talk to, including Tim Curry, who it's probably the best he sounded in several years because of his stroke and all the stuff that he's had to deal with recently. But just getting to hear him talk about himself coming down the stairs as Frankenfurter for the first. There's just so much like emotional resonance there and nostalgia, of course. Hearing about how it became so popular and the people that made it popular. So, yeah, Strange Journey. Look for it. It is worth a watch. Even if you're not really a big fan of Rocky Horror, you will get so much out of this because it's a piece of time and a piece of culture that is so integral to, I think most nerds out there, nerds and geeks out in the world. So, yeah.
Yeah, I did watch it a couple months ago. Really enjoyed it. Some of the other Rocky Horror documentaries really emphasize the role of the fans, and I like that this one was almost completely focused on the creators. Some minor things I would have liked them to discuss more about shock treatment, because I think the story of the sequel is fascinating and something that wasn't a success, but in no way marred the success of the original film. Richard O'Brien's story, is just, there are a lot of men like him, a lot of men like him, and a lot of men that didn't have the outlet that he had. And you also have to keep in mind when you watch that he was one of the lucky ones in a sense. And that, that his struggle, I would say, I would legitimately call it a struggle, took the form of such a beautiful piece of art, and also some deathly funny stuff. Just
Absolutely.
Susan Sarandon's stories about she never knew where she was staying. The next day when they were filming.
She was couch hopping while they were
couch hopping and stuff.
Or actually, no, they filmed in the UK. Sorry, they filmed in the old Hammer Studios. I forget, Bray, I think it was. But yeah, just amazing.
Some of the actress who plays Magenta, she's a hoot.
I love her.
So it's so worth your time. I completely second Steve's recommendation on this.
Oh, we've got another comment here from John Runyon. Woofs, comic book bears definitely assembled tonight. Thank you guys all for being amazing. Thank you, John, for loving us, because we love you too.
All right, over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your woof of the week?
My woof of the week goes out to a television show. I'm going to channel my inner Steve on this one. So HBO has a new show that actually just started airing. I think maybe the first 2-ish episodes are out. Maybe just the first episode. I've only watched the first. But the cover, or I say cover, the image that they show for it caught my attention, because it's one very gruff looking man with another kind of quasi nerdy, beige looking man in a headlock. And I was like, okay, what's this? So I started looking at it, and it just kind of piqued my interest. And I watched the first episode, and immediately I'm hooked. I mean, this was one of those shows, like I watched it, I was like, oh, I've got to text a friend about this right now. So the show is called Half Man. It's on HBO Max. You can watch it there. It's the story that really centers around two men that are air quotes brothers. They are like brothers. They were raised together in real life. They've got a 40-year history, but there's a whole lot of estrangement in there. Niall is, he is this kind of scrawny, probably can't handle himself in a fight kind of guy who is about to get married. It looks like he works in a cubicle somewhere. And he's that person, and he's about to get married, and all of a sudden this gruff, like quasi UFC looking fighter guy shows up, and his name's Ruben, played by Richard Gadd. And I should say Niall was played by Jamie Bill. And just interrupts his wedding, and you can tell that there's a lot of history there, and you find out they're brothers. Well, jump back to the 80s when they were raised together. Their respective mothers lived together, may or may not be lesbians. We're not real sure at this point in time. Niall is in fact the wimpy kid who looks like, the kid in the Atlas bodybuilding ad who needs to work out and gets sand kicked in his face. And that's who he is. Like, the guy's getting beat up at school, gets no respect or whatever. His mother invites a friend to move in with her and her son, who by all means has been in juvenile. He's a juvenile delinquent. He's scary. He's going to stab somebody, gets in fights. He shows up. And they have both this tension where they are not working together, and the young version of Ruben doesn't want to show any softness but there is some there, where they're a little bit, Niall's a little bit scared of him, but a little bit like, okay, maybe there's something here and we can be friends. And that's kind of how the first episode plays itself out. There is an aloofness there, or like keep you at arm's length, but Ruben sees Niall getting picked on and handles that shit where it's not going to happen again, right? Through just brutality. He beats the shit out of a kid just because of it. And they start to develop this relationship. It is interesting. It is very homoerotic, although I don't think it is queer coded, not queer. There is a scene there where, to thank Niall for helping him pass a test, basically, it's the I can fix him. It basically, Ruben sneaks a girl into the room and makes the girl, forces Niall to have sex with the girl, have his first sexual experience, while he like talks and coaches in a very close proximity to Niall. And it's like, hey, just follow my breathing, right? To this event. It's fascinating. It's great television. Cannot wait to see where this season goes, because at the end of it, they're back at the wedding and it gets violent, and you're just like, what in the British Cockney cocaine fueled hell is happening? And that's just kind of where we're at with things. So absolutely put this on your watch list. It is very, very good. Very, very good.
All right. Very cool. I did ensure that in conversation with Steve that we did get that for the Plex.
Yep.
So it's on the list, just wasn't able to get to it. And again, as you said, it just premiered. Yeah. All right. For my Wolf of the Week, we're well over 2 hours, so I'm going to try to speed through this. My Wolf of the Week goes out to a concert. It was a week ago Monday that I went to see Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. It's my 15th time seeing Springsteen. This is the Land of Hope and Dreams tour. A lot of notoriety on this tour, very difficult to get tickets for, and also very much a politically charged event. Was very happy I got tickets. For somebody who's 76 years old to put on a show that was just shy. It was literally like 1 minute shy of 3 hours. Is something else. We're treated to some great covers of Edwin Starr and Clash songs. Tom Morello was joining Bruce for almost half the set. Steve, if you can just go through some brief pictures. It was over at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. And then if you can go to the next one, there was some merch there. And then the next one, I think, is me and my concert husband, Tom. Also for geeks, Tom just a movie he was in was just released and he has some scenes with Daniel Roebuck. So that's like, especially with horror stuff, that's a geek celebration in and of itself. But I felt very lucky to be able to see that, and again, from the stage, the things he say they just hit you right now. And there's also something going on when I do see legacy acts, and there is this uncertainty because of age, whether it's the last time you'll see them. And Darkness on the Edge of Town just leveled me. It just absolutely leveled me. But I certainly hope everybody can see Springsteen at least once. And this is my 15th time. I'm glad I got the opportunity. So, Wolf of the Week, Bruce Springsteen on the Land of Hope and Dreams tour. And I think next time, both Caleb and I will have concerts to talk about. Most likely will be our Wolves of the Week. We'll have free comic book day to talk about. Yeah, free comic book with the podcats. Okay. So go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, speaking of legacy musicians, I just want to say, because obviously he listens, happy 93rd birthday to Willie Nelson, who is still doing pretty amazing things, and about to put out a new album.
God. Wow.
God bless them all.
Fantastic.
So again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on most social media as Comic Book Bears. On Facebook, you can find us as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to listen to us, you can do so through Apple Podcasts, through Spotify, and many of the other podcasting platforms. If you've joined us through Facebook Live or one of the other live platforms tonight, thank you. If you were joining us later watching us on YouTube, thank you. Please like and subscribe. And if you want to reach out to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. And until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Steve, you got to give us a little more Jimmy Valmer, please.
Okay.
Dude, you better prepare for the 12 days of Christmas. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes.
You better prepare for that. You have 8 months.
5 cold I'm going to hell for that, aren't I?
No, not the. My afterlife doesn't have a hell, but I'm the boss. What says goes. So
yeah,
worry about that. All right.
Good night.
You'll be laughing about this all night. All right. Again, if you're listening to the audio version, you're going to hear a woof and an explosion. We'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Woof boom.